Folks, are you tired of people telling you your band is too darn loud when you're just trying to practice in your house or garage? Well, if you live in Austin, I have the solution for you. That's Space Rehearsal and Recording. Space is a state-of-the-art affordable venue for rehearsal and recording, located just a few short miles south of downtown Austin. They have 31 spacious rooms, great PAs, fantastic courteous staff. They have everything you need to get your artistic business together at Space. Find them at 512-448-9518 or go to spaceatx.com and start playing as loud as you want in Space, Rehearsal, and Recording. Let's get down. Gang, we all know Spotify is the best and most popular music streaming app. They have millions of songs by millions of artists available at your fingertips. But did you know that aside from millions of songs, Spotify now has thousands and thousands of podcasts from all of your favorites, including Fresh Air, How Did This Get Made? Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend. They also have original programming like Stay Free, The Story of the Clash, and of course, the ever-popular Barack Obama and Bruce Springsteen podcast going on right now. Just go to Spotify.com or download the app from your app store. And don't forget to follow How Did I Get Here? That's Spotify. Millions of songs and thousands of podcasts. Let's get down.
And you may ask yourself, well, how did I get here?
It's time for How Did I Get Here? And now here is your host,
All right. Hello, I'm Johnny. I'm your host. Welcome to the show. I hope you guys have all had a good week, whatever it is you've done this week. I've been playing catch up with all of my stuff, with the podcast, Skyrocket, my own music stuff, Austin Music Foundation stuff. Everything's kind of like kicking at once. And I've been going back and forth to Houston the last couple of weeks and not really digging into my stuff. So it's been a busy week for me, but it's been good, man. You know, I went out and saw Nemagate the other night. Fantastic band here in Austin. They play Monday nights at the 1-to-1 bar at 9:30. Get out there and check them out. Great Latin band. I need to get them on the show. Great power trio. Fantastic, sort of like chanting music. They get into the psychedelic world. They play synths. They all play percussion stuff. It's super badass. Get out there and check them out. But I was a little bit nervous going in there because of all the numbers going up and everything. People are freaking out again. Yeah, all the unvax people got all the vax people sick. And now even if you're vaccinated, you're still getting sick. I know a handful of people that have been vaccinated. I know more people now getting COVID than back when COVID was a thing last year in 2020. Seriously. Like, I know more in the last 2 weeks that have gotten it than in any 2 weeks back when it was really going on. So it's quite a frightening thing. And I've got a show tomorrow night with Skyrocket. We're playing a wedding. I don't know, man. You know, like, you're a little bit hesitant about doing that stuff. We got public shows coming up, big shows, 310, 2 nights at 310, August 6th and 7th, August 13th. At Sam's Burger Joint, a sold-out show August 14th already in Houston at Rockefeller's. So, yeah, it's a little bit nerve-wracking. Because you're like, shit, man, me going out there, am I spreading the thing? Am I getting the thing? What is going on with the thing? That's, it starts to freak you out. Anyway, I'm being careful. I'm wearing a mask everywhere I go, like I kind of was anyway, whenever I went into places and stuff like that. So, I guess that's all we can do is be careful. And if you're not vaccinated, get vaccinated. All right. I've moved a lot of my podcasts over to Zoom, but there was one that had to move a couple of times and we were going to do it on Zoom. And then this gentleman said like, no, I'd like to sit down and do it in person. And I got what he was talking about. And it's my guest today. Legendary pianist and organist Red Young is my guest on the show today. He's amazing, man. That guy's been playing for years, since the 60s. He's played with so many people, it will blow your mind, dude. He's played with Sonny and Cher, Joan Armatrading, Dolly Parton, Tanya Tucker, Eric Burdon from The Animals. He's been playing with him for the last 15 years or so, or even more. He's been his musical director and everything. He toured with Linda Ronstadt singing backup in the 80s when she was touring with the Nelson Riddle Orchestra. I mean, just this rich story about this guy from Fort Worth that was like a piano prodigy at an early age. Started playing at age 3, and by age 8 he had his first classical recital. And then he started moving into the thing, started playing professionally, getting out there, playing gigs, and then getting all these huge gigs. And he moved to Austin in the early 2000s at the urgence of the late great Stephen Bruton, who told him there were great people here to play with, like Brandon Temple, like Yogi, the great bass player. And Brandon Temple actually has told me a couple times, you need to get Red on the show. So finally I got Red on the show. And they're actually playing together next Wednesday, July 28th at the Continental Club Gallery. Brandon Temple is playing with Red Young and Friends. So it'll be Red and Brandon. But Red's also playing tomorrow night, Saturday, July 24th at Seaboys here in Austin. And he's also playing July 30th at Scat Lounge in Fort Worth. Go to redyoung.com for all of your Red Young needs. Now, I spent quite some time listening to Red stuff as we had set up the podcast and had to move it a couple times. Once was my deal, once was his deal. And we finally got it together in person. But I spent a lot of time listening to 3 records of his mostly. A record that came out in 2003 called The Organizer, on which he plays organ the whole time. And then this album called Duets from 2011. And then this album called Ballads and Blues from 2018. You can go find all of these on Spotify or any of the streaming services. Or go to redyoung.com for all of your Red Young needs. Anyway, I noticed an extreme difference in the way that he approached his playing on the organ as opposed to how he approaches playing on the piano. And he's such an amazing artist, and it's so inspiring to sit here and talk to somebody who's been doing this since before I was born, yet still gets so much out of it. You know what I mean? Why would he want to go play the Continental Club Gallery after playing for so long, going up the stairs and doing the whole, you know what I mean? Like, not that the Continental Club Gallery is bad. It's just that this guy gets the same thing out of playing music that he always has. And he's been doing it for the same reason the whole time. Because he loves playing music. And it's one of the most inspiring conversations I've had in a long time. Really, like one of the most inspiring conversations I've had in a long time. He's had tons of songs featured on TV shows and stuff. And he's writing a book. And so by the end of the conversation, I'm like, where is this book? How soon are you close to finishing it? He's not near finishing it. So, Red, you got to finish that book, man. Because I want to hear more stories. We'll get you back on the show. Always great talking to people like Red Young. Huge inspiration for me. It's like in the world of Jedis, it's like sitting down and talking to Obi-Wan Kenobi or something. Amazing. Go to redyoung.com. Don't forget he's playing tomorrow night, Saturday, if you live in Austin, Saturday, July 24th at Seaboys. And next Wednesday at the Continental Club Gallery with the great Brandon Temple, July 30th at Scat Lounge in Fort Worth. He will be going home to Fort Worth. And so without further ado, please enjoy my inspiring, entertaining, and really enriching conversation with the legendary musician, Red Young. Let's get down. So, what do you take to a gig? If it's an organ gig, you're doing it at Seaboys. They've got an organ.
Oh yeah, they got an organ. I mean, when I first moved here, there was only one organ. That was at Antone's.
Right.
And I got here in 2000. Well, I started coming down here, started working with Stephen Bruton, and started looking around the town. Went to the Elephant Room. Said, "Man, this would be a perfect room for an organ." You know, how do we get the organ in there? Well, there's an elevator behind the bandstand. Oh, cool. Okay, so I moved. But now there's like 6 organs in town.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's Seaboys downstairs and upstairs at the Continental Club, Parker Jazz Club, and then my A100 is over at Antone's and Elephant Room. I keep my B3 there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There you go.
That's always good. Did you ever used to go see Ian McLaughlin?
Sure.
He would schlep that thing.
Yeah, I mean, Ian, I actually did a show. It was one of those Views and Brews things, the KUT, and they said, I said, I'd like to do one with the organ players. And so they said, okay, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, I wanted to get James Polk.
Yeah.
To have him as like the because I saw him play at Jimmy Smith's club in the 80s in L.A.
Oh, really?
So I knew he could play organ. When I moved here, he was just playing piano, and then I coaxed him into playing a little more organ. But I had Ian was on it, Dan Farnsworth from Mingo Fish Trap.
Okay.
And then a friend of mine who was in town from Austria, and Raphael Resnick. And he's just he's nominated, best organ player and downbeat all the time. But, and then me on organ. And I was coming, and I had 2 organs set up. Brandon Temple was playing drums in between us. Ian had the best story. But yeah, I knew him. And I talked to him. We have a lot of mutual friends. Bonnie Ray's a friend of mine. So, and Ian was playing with her. And then just his stories,
Yeah. I did one of these with him.
Oh, man.
Long time ago in the early, obviously before he passed away.
He's still got his website up, and it has one page of just Irish and English jokes. Have you seen that?
No.
I'll check it out, man.
No, that's awesome.
You're like, this is Ian.
So were all of you guys playing at once?
No.
That would have been cool.
We did like a round robin thing.
Okay.
2 of them at the same time.
Okay.
And it was really cool. I've got that recorded. And it may be on KUT blog or something, Views and Brews.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you did this show the other night with Kim Wilson?
Yeah.
At Antone's?
Yeah.
How far back do you go with him?
The first time I met him, there was a buddy of mine, a guy I went to high school with named Jimmy Don Smith. Jimmy Don, Freddie Cisneros. Freddie was at Rockin' Robin in Houston. Jimmy I was in high school with. And he was Teresa James, the Rhythm Tramps, all that stuff, like the history, this is back in the 60s. Anyway, he moved to Houston. He got cancer. And so we wanted to have a benefit for him. And the benefit was Tony Braunagel put it together with Terry Wilson, a drummer and a bass player from Houston. Me, we were the rhythm section. And the artists were Delbert McClinton, Bonnie Raitt, Jimmy Vaughn, and Kim Wilson. So that was during the Thunderbird. So that's where I first met Kim. Okay. That was back in '84.
Okay.
So.
Right before they kind of like exploded in a mainstream way.
I think they were in the process of exploding.
Yeah.
That was just the thing was that Jimmy died of cancer, but we raised like over $30,000. It went into a scholarship. There's still $30,000 in the fund. They give away $1,000 every year to some musician for a scholarship.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so it's like, dang, man. So 80s from him. Delbert, 1965. That's when I met him.
Yeah.
It was like Fort Worth history. And same thing with Burdon.
And that's you from Fort Worth?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the water.
Yeah, Bruton's from Fort Worth. There's some other guys from there, right? Aren't there like?
Oh God, yeah.
What's the fiddle guy?
Oh, James Pennybaker.
No.
Bruton, Glenn Clark, Delbert, King Curtis, Cornell Dupree, Chuck Rainey, Ornette Coleman, Dewey Redmond,
Jesus.
Bob Wills. There's all these people. It was just Van Cliburn. I met Van Cliburn in the classical field when I was 10 years old. He was there too. So it was like, just a real wide mesh of music to do, so.
Well, before we get into that,
okay.
You're doing a show. I'm going to put this out on Friday. So
okay.
Tomorrow, Saturday, July 24th, you'll be playing at Seaboys with just you and Brandon.
No, the one on Saturday, I'm calling it Brother Red because that's the name I used in L.A. for a while. Organ, I've got Adam Jackson on drums, Mike Malone on sax, and Dan Bechtold on sax.
Okay.
So it's going to be everything from Little Feat to Sly Stone to God knows what.
Yeah.
Isaac Hayes, Charles Ireland. I'm still writing tunes.
You are?
Yeah, I'm just kind of throwing them at the guys.
Well, there's some songs that I'm listening to the 3 records that are on Spotify, which are the Organizer, Duets, and Ballads and Blues, mostly.
Yeah.
On those, there are songs that are covers, obviously, but there's a lot of those songs. Do you write those?
A lot of them, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I did an album called Brother Red, and my duets album, I had a lot of originals on that.
Okay.
I'm not going to do any of those, of course.
No.
No. It's the Sea Boys, I've been watching Jimmy Vaughn and Mike Flanagan.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
thing, and they do this like 1960s kind of Dallas push club.
Is that what that is?
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, it's cool. It's like, but there was another element of organ back at that time, which was it was a little harder edge. I mean, the organ players at the time, copied a lot of Jimmy Smith and
Right.
Jack McDuff and that sort of stuff. But Charles Ireland was one of them. Larry Young,
Yeah.
And Larry Young had what was the thing with John McLaughlin? That thing. It was Tony Williams' Lifetime.
All right.
And it was just like a real out jazz, but the organ was the primary part of that group.
Yeah.
And it was distorted and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'll probably do some animal stuff too, because I worked with Eric Burdon off and on for 30 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to get to that. Okay, so listen to all this stuff. The other day when we were going to do this, and I had spent the morning listening to it, and I was listening to it on my drive back from Houston the other day, and then again today. It's so interesting. The language that you speak on the organ is a lot more aggressive
Yeah.
than the language you speak on the piano.
Yes.
You get into a little bit of the attitude on the piano, but it stays beautiful, at least on the records that you're focusing on piano on these.
Right.
But like when you're hitting that organ, there's like dissonance and there's like it's.
Well, it's not a timid instrument.
No, it's not.
That's why I said there's an album that Charles Ireland did back in the 60s, and that's when I first heard the organ. He just hold on to a high C for about 2 choruses, And I said, listen to that, and you'll see it's not a timid instrument.
No,
just go for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you listen. I mean, it has that dynamic, but it also has. I mean, you get into the church stuff, black church, and I mean, it's just like there's so many dynamics in that instrument.
There are.
Yeah, it's just an incredible thing. I mean, I first played it in 1969, and then I bought my organ in 1971. I was in the Air Force Band 68 to 72, and they shipped me to this one area of the United States. There were no piano players and there were no bass players. It was all organ players, so I had to learn how to play the organ. And I just watched different people, how they did it. Some of them were, real jazzy, and some of them were just rocking. The Allman Brothers were a big, influence on me, or Lee Michaels. Lee Michaels and Frosty. I mean, you knew Frosty.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, I mean, there was just the same instrument, and that was one reason I did that KUT show, is because each person sits down at the organ, and it's a different instrument.
Yeah.
It's just like, like a canvas, somebody uses purple and somebody uses black,
Yeah, and the tone still is in the fingers,
Right.
Even on an instrument that you're not necessarily fingering, because there's no dynamic to the hit and there's no, it's just a plastic key.
It's easy to play.
Yeah,
It's hard to master.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
But it's a lot in the drawbars. I mean, I've discovered some things that nobody taught me. I was like, oh man, that's cool. You can almost get a feedback on the thing just by pulling drawbars out.
Yeah.
Or just holding your hand down on it and just bringing the drawbars out. I mean, those like people have no idea,
Yeah.
And then playing pedals too. That's the other thing, It's like, I mean, it's a total orchestra.
Yeah.
Or a big band, whatever you want to do,
It's pretty phenomenal getting to watch somebody, like from my perspective, getting to watch, and probably from yours too, getting to watch someone like Flanagan go from like this dude playing guitar over Antones to like, some years later, woodshedding, and then kind of like getting good in front of everyone.
Right.
Well,
I mean, he played organ. He was a friend of Big John Patton, which was John Patton was like the Blue Note guys.
Okay.
Back in the 60s, Jack McDuff, all these, Don Patterson. There was this whole group of guys around New York and New Jersey and Pennsylvania, Philadelphia produced Groove Holmes and, all those guys. So everybody had to have their different sound. everybody locked onto something, you know. So Flanagan became friends with Big John Patton, and he was hanging around him, so he was a big influence on him. You know, said, "Don't play that, man. Be simple."
Yeah, yeah. And I know that John. I mean, it was Mike that kind of got me into Jimmy Smith. I didn't really know much about him. I knew the name, but I didn't know the guy.
Well, and Jimmy Smith started out as a piano player,
Right?
You know, and so did Ian McLaughlin. You know, that was the thing about McLaughlin on this KUT show. I said, "So how'd you get?" Because what I did with each one of the guys, I had them explain, "Well, where did you first start playing the Hammond organ?" And Ian said, "Well, you know, everybody was playing guitar at that time." He said, "I didn't want to play just guitar, so I wanted to play piano, but you couldn't hear the piano." And he said, and I saw an ad in the back of Melody Maker. You know, this is like this. Lived in London, and he said, "Hammond organ, free demonstration, 2 weeks. Call this number." And he said he waited until his dad and mom went to work, and he called the number and said, "Listen, I'm interested in the organ." He said, "Sure, we'll deliver one to you." And he said, and they put it in the dining room. And you know, Hammond organ is not small instrument.
Yeah, no, they're not going to miss it.
So Dad came home and he said, "Dad, I got an organ. I got it free." And he said, "Free? Great. Let me go look." And he said they tried to open the door to the dining room. They couldn't open the door. But he still had that organ for years and years.
Is it that purple one that he had?
Yeah.
Jesus.
This is a Nelly or something.
Yeah. All right, so let's go back. You're born in Fort Worth,
right? And
you started playing piano at an early age.
Yeah, I started when I was 3.
Okay, so were they like? Did you want to play piano, or were people like, "Hey, you're going to play piano"?
We'd go to my grandmother's house, and I'd be, instead of banging on the piano, just move my fingers. So she started showing me little songs. I became fascinated with the sound and what you could do with the key. At 5, I started classical piano lessons. I did my first concert when I was 9. That was like Chopin, Beethoven, heavy stuff.
Did you have an unusually acute concentration skill at that point? Or was it just music? All of a sudden, you connected.
It was a talent that I had, and as soon as I knew the names of the notes, my piano teacher said, "Okay, you stand over there," and I'd stand away from the piano where I couldn't see the key, and she'd hit notes on the piano, and I'd name every one of them. Then she'd hit 2 notes, and she hit clusters of notes. I could pick out every one of them, and what that did for me was that anything I could hear, I could duplicate. You know, full symphony orchestras, I can say what the third trombone player is playing. You know,
that blows my mind.
So it was just kind of a fascination that way.
Do you think that's something that some people are born? I mean, I know so many musicians. Like there's I'm in a band with a guy that you're just like, how do you hear? How are you hearing?
It's just
music.
For me, it's just a remembering a pitch.
Yeah,
like, that's. It used to be A. Don't A right now. Yeah, because when I grew up, my reference point was the piano that I had at home, so I always knew that A was the absolute pitch. But over years, LPs started drifting, CDs, cassette tapes, you know, and those. So sometimes something right in between, a note. You know, one time I hear it, it'll be an A. The next time it'll be B flat.
Yeah. Well, that and like people would speed up songs just a little bit to give it a little bit of excitement.
Tune a guitar.
Those are horrible, man. Those drive me nuts.
Yeah.
I'll sit here and learn songs like just a quarter tone off, like until I can't take it anymore.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's lots of stories of.
So you did your first recital then when you were 8. What kind of recital was that? Was that like in a theater or in a hall or something? Or?
It was a children's museum in Fort Worth, and they had a piano in there. So I don't know, probably 50, 60 people, something like that. And it was just a special concert.
Were you like, I'm like, this is it, music is my thing? Yeah. Or was there other stuff? Were you like into fishing?
Well, I wanted to play baseball, but my parents wouldn't let me because they thought it would mess up my hands.
Oh, so they were really that into the piano as well?
Yeah, my dad was a trumpet player like in his teens, and he said, I don't know if you're familiar with Fort Worth, but Jacksboro Highway was the place where all the mafia clubs were.
Oh, okay.
You know,
okay.
Delbert McClinton would put a band together to back up Jimmy Reed or Lightning Hopkins or any of those blues guys came in. So that was the funky place. That was in the 60s, 50s and 60s. But back in the 30s and 40s when my dad grew up, the big bands would come out there, and it was run by mafia. So he said he was sitting on the bandstand playing trumpet, and shots rang out, and he left the trumpet on the chair, and he went out the back window. He said never picked it up again. But what he did was he had an amazing collection of 78 records. It was like Duke Ellington and Count Basie and Mahalia Jackson, Nat Cole. So I grew up with Spike Jones. So there's all this music that was playing in the house all the time. My sister played. She's about almost 2 years older than me. So she would get an instrument, and I'd be curious about it, and then she'd lay it down, and I'd pick it up and start figuring it out,
Yeah.
So it was always music around.
Wow.
And I was a shy kid, too, so I really didn't know how to talk to people. So what I would do is we'd go over to somebody's house, and I'd say, where's the piano? And I'd sit down at the piano, and then people would come up and talk to me.
Yeah.
Okay, this is cool.
Yeah. Yeah. There is that sort of connection that happens with a lot of people. Like, there's the...
you play in a band.
Chicks.
Get the girls.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, you play so well.
Yeah. So what was how old were you, like, when you entered high school? Like, what year was it?
Oh,
was it early 60s?
Yeah, high school was probably 63.
Okay.
62, 63.
So what happened to you when the Ed Sullivan Beatles thing, did that affect you in any way, or were you in another world musically?
First time I heard it, 1, 2, 3, 4. I thought it was a black band.
Yeah.
But we'd been listening. Fort Worth, the radio stations we had there, KXOL radio and KFJZ, they played the AM radio back then, was really eclectic. But it was also Bruce Chanel and Delbert McClinton were Fort Worth. Bruce Chanel had a hit on Hey Baby in 1962. So, and then Bruce and Delbert wound up going over to a tour in England, and the opening act was the Beatles.
Right.
So there was this, you heard the Beatles, but to my ear, the early songs were okay, but then a lot of the British Invasion stuff, the Kinks,
right.
Saying, or the Stones. The chord sequences just didn't make sense to me to a lot of it,
Right.
So I was like, this is weird, So while everybody else was copying the Beatles, I was copying Ray Charles and James Brown.
Okay.
Because we really like, and this buddy of mine in high school, Freddie Cisneros. He was a big blues fan, B.B. King and Freddie King lived over in Dallas, so there was like this real big blues thing in Fort Worth. So I kind of leaned toward that. I listened to Dave Brubeck, the first jazz band I was in I had to sit down, drop the needle on it, and write down the notes of what Brubeck was doing, So,
just from hearing it like that?
Huh?
Just from hearing that you could just...
Well, I hear it once, and that ear training really helped me a lot.
Yeah.
Actually, I can sit down, you can play something on guitar, and I can anticipate where you're going with it.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know, something that I've just done over a lot
force.
Of years.
You got the force, man.
Yeah. But it came in handy, like, many times. Like, we did, getting forward in the 70s, I started recording in Houston. Sugar Hill Studios.
Yeah.
Huey Moe did 6 albums with Freddie Fender. But they would bring all these different people in there. And the band, we'd have to learn the tunes. And so what I do is I just sit down and could play the tune. I just chart it out and give it to the secretary, and she'd make copies of everything. So everybody was writing my,
So were you kind of the MD of the sessions there?
Yeah, the same. If we're gonna play, let's all play the same chords.
Yeah. How many in those 70s records, when they go in and do those Freddie Fender sessions, were they like sessions like you did a number of songs and like everyone sat there, you played through the song with Freddie, and then they recorded it?
Yeah. Well, there was one night they gave Freddie well, they called them black mollies back then.
Oh,
It was
yeah,
like
that's speed.
you know?
Yeah.
So I gave him a couple of them. We did 2 albums in one night. But what he did, and this Freddie, Freddie, he had heard and the engineer, Mickey Moody was the engineer. He said, "Man, he come to the end of the song, and Freddie's voice keeps getting weaker and weaker, and he keeps putting." Freddie was fading himself out, so he'd be singing because that's what he heard on records. So he said that's what he thought people were dead.
How cool, man. He seemed like he was a pretty special guy, huh?
Oh, he was.
Yeah, good guy. Yeah. So you're in high school. When did you first start playing out at places, and what kind of shows were they?
Well, during the Tina Go-Go time, I had a band. Actually,
oh yeah.
Before then, my dad booked the Junior Elks Club. He was a member of the Elks Club. So I put the bands together to play at those. And I used guys that I knew from Fort Worth. One of them was a guy named Dean Parks. And Dean, I'm still friends with him. He wrote Dancing Machine. He wrote Dancing Machine
for the Jacksons.
Yeah.
But
that's only one thing he did. He played on Steely Dan.
Yeah.
He moved out. Well, actually, at the time, how he wound up going to L.A. and getting into that. Now he's playing the Grammys and Emmys and all that kind of stuff. He's in that house band. But at the time, Sonny and Cher came out with a hit, and what they would do is different sections around the country, they'd have rhythm sections they'd pick up for concerts.
Yeah.
So he and David Hungate wound up going. They were in North Texas, Lou Marini and all those guys. And they liked that section, so they asked those guys to move out to L.A. Well, Hungate was the bass player with Toto.
Okay.
And then Dean he was in Sonny and Cher, and then Johnny Rivers, and then he played on Stevie Wonder Intervisions. That's his guitar playing.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. It was handmade by a guy in Fort Worth. Burdon had the only 2 were made by Errol Prince. So Dean had one, and Stephen had the other.
That was a magical guy, Burdon, as well.
Yeah.
Huh? Beautiful man.
Oh, he was a great songwriter and a character.
He's so nice too. I remember there was a lot of times like when I was in the process of getting a record deal like over 20 years ago, and we'd be at the Austin Rehearsal Complex when it was open here.
Right.
And he genuinely interested and like concerned, like, hey, don't, look out, like keep your eyes open, buddy. There was a lot of those talks I had with Steven.
Burdon's a character. Man.
Yeah. Okay. So, let's. After Fort Worth, you went to Houston or you went to L.A.?
After Fort Worth, I went on the road
with Sonny and Cher.
No. The first road thing I went up North Texas. I wanted to study jazz. 9 weeks how long I lasted because they didn't. They said all you have is classical training, so you can't. You need experience.
You can't jazz.
That's why I wanted to come up here and do this. No, so anyway, I was working 6 nights a week in Fort Worth anyway, driving back and forth to Denton. The Musicians Union got me a job with a guy named Clyde McCoy. And Clyde McCoy was famous for a wah-wah trumpet. Thomas Organ Company, it's just 1967. Thomas Organ Company had just made an electronic pedal that simulated Clyde's wah-wah.
Oh.
And they gave it to him to endorse. And then all we had was a guitar and banjo and a Dixieland band. And then, Hendrix got a hold of it and Clapton, and that became the Crybaby Wah-Wah.
Wow.
Right. So that was 67. But I was playing Dixieland jazz. We alternated with the Supremes in Atlantic City. Spent 3 weeks in New York. That was freaky at the time. I was 18 years old.
But were you wanting to do stuff more like the Supremes than Dixieland jazz?
Not really.
No. Okay.
I was a big sponge. And,
yeah.
Dixieland. Working with this guy, he was 64 years old. I was 18. I was learning all the stuff that he played back in the 20s and 30s. He was a contemporary of Louis Armstrong.
Yeah.
And the big bands and all that stuff. So it was like, to me, I had listened to big bands on my dad's 78 records.
Right.
But I didn't know how all that stuff worked. I knew some of the tunes because that's what I grew up learning.
Right.
But then I started being exposed more and more to other types of music. I always had a good orchestral. Because I love Rachmaninoff and Chopin and all that stuff. But they wanted me to be a concert pianist, but I couldn't see perfecting notes that somebody had written 200 years before.
Right. I think for listeners that don't actually play music, there's such a difference. Like a classically trained musician, you are bound to
Right.
this stuff.
Right.
You get a jazz guy, you get the real book, and then that structure. There is still a structure,
Right.
quarterly,
Right.
but it's up to you
Right.
to have the freedom to speak your own language and say what you have to say in those.
The classical in high school, we had my 10th grade and 12th grade. We had piano concerto contests citywide. So they gave you one was a Grieg piano concerto and the other one was a Beethoven. And when I got to my 12th grade, I was already starting to improvise some, And so I said, well, look, there's a section in the piano concerto, it's called a cadenza. And I said, this is the performer's interpretation of the piece. So can I write my own? They said, no, you have to play the one that's written because we judge you on that.
Right.
So I kind of realized, well, I'd rather write my own, but, I'll wait on that. So it was just like this. It kind of put off a flag to me.
It could be a turnoff. Yeah.
And so, but I mean, Chopin is great for boogie piano.
Yeah.
And all the techniques and everything you use in classical music, and compositional. Well, there's a lot of everybody starts out doing that stuff.
Right.
It's just that like, okay, well, Chopin did that. Or you write a song, and you have to play it for about a dozen friends and say, does this sound familiar? No,
Yeah.
man. Okay, great. I wrote it.
Yeah.
It's only 12 notes, so.
I know. Isn't that a weird trip?
Yes.
Like after all this time, it's just 12 notes and we're all just trying to put them in a sequence that no one's ever heard before, but they still like it.
Right. I know. That is really the weird thing, but somehow you come out with, you can tell when somebody's ripping somebody off.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But.
So, your training and your experience was classical, and then you started moving into jazz, but then you started playing with country people, with pop people.
Right.
Like a gig like Sonny and Cher, you were touring with them?
Yeah. And I did a TV special with Cher. Sonny and Cher was interesting because.
What year was that?
1976.
So they had a TV show.
Yeah, they had already
But they had split up, and they were still, yeah.
She was married to Greg Allman.
Right.
And I was a big fan of the Allman Brothers. I heard that first live at Fillmore.
Yeah.
And to me it was like, this is blues, but man, this is like some intense jazz stuff, And then I read that they'd sit down and listen to Coltrane and snort coke, and then they'd go out on stage and play all this out. And it was just, to me, it was like, and the organ, it was like this big. It was creative. It was jazz. It was blues. It was, So when she was married to Greg, he would show up. He came out for a week. We played New Year's Eve out in Hawaii. And of course, Greg, man, so happy to meet you, man. He says, I'm going to put the band back together, but I don't want Chuck on keyboards. I want to have you. I said, great, here's my number.
Do you ever
never hear from him again, But. That was an experience. But, it's like you get into those show things and you're playing a job. There's a certain amount of freedom that you can do. And I was playing organ and an Oberheim synthesizer.
Okay.
Sonny had, the guy I replaced was Steve Porcaro.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
he was a synth guy.
And at that time, they had a horn section, but they wanted to play strings. And Oberheim, it was just like a complex instrument, And I flew out there and I met him one day, and then we left to D.C. the next day. He said, "Okay, you're going to play strings on that. How does it work?" And I said, "I don't know, man. Get out the manual." I had a mini Moog, Steve Barber. I saw him play with Electromags because they used to come up to Fort Worth, and he was playing a Wurlitzer and a mini Moog. So I knew how they worked, kind of.
Yeah.
But you get something as complex as that thing. It's like, shit. And then the other thing about those things is that because it was all analog and heat related, the oscillators, they would heat about every 20 minutes. One of those 8 oscillators would go out of tune.
Yeah.
So you're doing a show and something's out of tune, you got to play a big string part. So I had to take it offline, use the strobo tuner, to try to figure out which one's out of tune. Okay, and then lock it back into line before the string part comes up. That was always happening. But it was a great sound,
Yeah.
But we played the Forum in Montreal, with those guys, But we also played a lot of dinner theaters and stuff. But it was, always copying music, and then later on, like 78.
Did you play that intro to
Huh?
I Got You, Babe?
Yeah.
You did?
That and bang bang, he shot me. Oh, and the thing was, okay, so we do these dinner theaters. I can't remember the one. There was one in Buffalo, New York, and Sonny was going with Susie. I can't remember what her last name was. And then Greg was never around, but she had the kids. She had Elijah Blue.
Right.
I think it was the only one. Oh, and Chaz. Yeah, Chaz was around. Chaz was about, 5 or 6 years. She'd hang around with me. What are you doing now?
Yeah.
But Elijah Blue, it would be, Sonny and Cher, during their shows, they would always try to one-up each other.
Uh-huh.
Well, Cher, I heard you did this. Oh, and they would just go back and forth. So every time Sonny would say something, you hear Elijah Blue off stage. You got that kid on cue? So, man, it was just an experience. And then, going through airports, it's celebrities like that. Everybody knew who they were.
Oh, God, yeah, they're Sonny and Cher. And they had been Sonny and Cher for over a decade at that point.
Oh, man. And the first time I met Cher, man, it's like, of course, me, I didn't really meet any celebrities in Fort Worth. At least to me, they weren't celebrities. They were just people I knew,
Right.
And then Sonny and Cher come out, and I, red-blooded American male, and Cher, oh, she looks so good,
Yeah.
So when we went to dinner in D.C. Within the first couple of weeks, I joined them. We're sitting there at dinner. Sonny liked to take everybody to dinner, road crew, the whole band, everything. One by one, everybody kind of got up and left, and they just left me and Cher sitting across the table from each other, man. I'm like, and I'm shy, and I didn't know, Cher, I got to tell you that, I just love everything you did. All this shit just started coming out. She didn't talk to me for a few weeks.
I was about to say, did you get fired?
Yeah, but, she just kind of looked at me like, no, not a fan like this. Oh God, he's on the road with me. But then when we started actually working on music, then we started into the musical conversation. I did a TV show, a TV special with her in 1978, where she wanted to do all the parts of West Side Story. The Bernardo, Anita, Tony, Maria,
right,
the Sharks, and the Jets, and she recorded all the parts. I had to take the entire score for West Side Story and transpose everything to her keys.
Right.
And then they filmed it 12 times, and a choreographer, she had photographic memory, so they didn't want her to run into each other on screen, so they showed her each move once.
Right.
And it was just like, it was quite an ordeal. But then it's like, I'm just working with my sister.
Yeah.
Working with somebody. It's just another.
Well, at that point, I mean, did you move to L.A. in the mid-'70s then? Were you doing sessions with those guys, like
I did.
Steve Lukather there?
No, Picaro. I did
Jeff?
half the album with him. There's a guy named Jerry Williams. Wrote "Giving It Up for Your Love."
Yeah, Jerry Lynn Williams.
Yeah, I knew him in high school. He's
another Fort Worth guy. Yeah.
And of course, we're playing Tina Go-Go's. He said, "Hey man, I like one of these days I'm going to get a record deal, and I want to have you play with me." Yeah, sure. But he called me. He said, "Hey, Johnny Starbuck, who was the guitar tech with Keith Richards, had gotten him a deal with Warner Brothers. So we recorded this thing over Wally Hyder, and it was Ed Watkins on bass, Jerry on guitar, me on keyboards, and Jeff Picaro on drums. And then Jeff quit after a little while. There's a story involved in that. I'm actually writing a book.
I know. Did that come up during COVID? Did you start writing a book or?
Oh, I know. It's like, well, like our conversation, I was launch into a story.
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah,
man,
yeah.
you need to write a book. Okay, then what I started doing, or online, somebody asked me a question about something, and I'll go into a long explanation of a story that's related to it.
Sure.
Because I remember all that stuff.
So why did Jeff leave the Jerry Lynn Williams?
Do what?
Why did Jeff Porcaro leave the Jerry Lynn Williams situation?
Well, okay, it's not a real long story, but we're recording the album, and Jerry wrote the lyrics to "Song from My Father," and it was like an 8-minute song. So what he wanted Jeff to do, he said, "Go out in the studio, and I'm going to record." This is before loops or drum machines or that stuff. Right. I just wanted you to play a groove. He recorded it on a 2-track, and then they, took like 4 bars or something,
right?
Spliced them together,
looped it,
and, yes,
did the loop,
with the
yeah,
and then I put it on a 24-track, and then we all played to that. We played live. We didn't overdub, me and bass and drums, and then he had Jeff go out and play like he was playing live. Well, this offended Jeff greatly, because he thought that he was, that Jerry was questioning his time. Well, Jeff had impeccable time. We'd done a whole album. But anyway, the next day he didn't show up for the session. He sent in a Lynn drum machine, which had just come out.
Which is his sounds too, right?
Huh?
They're his sounds on the Lynn, right?
I think so. I can't remember.
Somebody
that
like
was
that.
in the early days of it, and then the guy that replaced him was Denny Sywell. I'd been working. Sywell was the one that McCartney got when he split away from the Beatles. But
wow.
Wings,
Yeah.
So, Sywell I'd been working around in L.A. with another band. So it was just like, and Jerry eventually finished the album. He gave the song to Delbert, and became a hit. I think it was number 3. Give Enough Your Love.
Yeah. He, at one point I was being courted by Hamstein, the publisher people, like in the 90s and late 90s. And he was one of their writers. And I guess
Jerry was?
Jerry was, yeah. And he would live, I just assumed he lived on this bus. He just drove around in this really nice bus and would park at places and just hang out.
Yeah, total character.
I had a meeting on the bus with him, but we never wrote a song. But he was real cool.
Yeah,
he was an interesting cat, man.
Totally creative.
Yeah.
But, okay, Jerry, very eccentric. He would always find some property somewhere in the middle of nowhere that didn't have any roads that led to it, and he'd move.
Right? He seems like that guy.
So when he got the deal with Warner Brothers, he got front money. I think the budget was like $150,000. He wound up doubling, going twice over budget. And this was without any hits or any. He'd written some stuff with Dave Mason. Okay. That's how he got the deal.
Yeah.
But anyway, what he did was Jerry had enough front money. He found this place over in Goleta, California, overlooking Santa Barbara. It's called the Hidden Valley Ranch, and it was like 6 bedrooms, like buildings and everything. Jane Mansfield and Tom Hayden lived up the hill. So he called up the real estate agent and said, "Listen, I need the coordinates for my helicopter because I want to come look at the property." He had enough for about 3 months of mortgage and enough for the helicopter rental. They gave him the coordinates. He's got his Serape on and stuff. And he lands and gets out, looks around, okay, this will do. Thank you. I'll be in contact with you. And that's where he lived for 3 months.
That's insane.
I know. But it was Jerry.
Yeah.
And then he bought that place up in Leonard, Oklahoma. It was like a couple of thousand acres. He built a landing strip on it. You couldn't find it. But that's what Clapton to fly in and write stuff with him.
That's insane. Well, I want to keep in line with things. Joan Armatrading.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
They came through. Well, actually, I was working in L.A. with Sonny and Cher, and I got Dean Parks. They gave him a call, and I said, "Listen, I'm thinking about. I was still living in Fort Worth, and we'd fly out." I said, called Dean Parks, and I said, "Listen, I'm thinking about moving to L.A. If you know anybody looking for a keyboard player." So a couple of weeks later, I got a call from this English voice. Red, this is Glenn Johns, and you've come highly recommended from Dean Parks. Okay. I'd heard of Glenn Johns.
Yeah.
Because the engineer. And he said, and it's a, we've auditioned 20 keyboard players here in L.A., and none of them fit the bill. And the artist's name is Joan Armatrading. I said, okay, yeah, I'd love to come out and audition, So I went to a record store and I said, do you have anything by Joan Armatrading? I said, Armatrading? Yeah. So I got the 2 albums, transcribed everything on it. They flew me out to L.A. for rehearsal at A&M Studios because she was signed to A&M,
Right.
Herb Alpert, Jerry Moss. And I'm ready. I've got my charts. Okay, let's, they said, what do you want to play? I said, a Hammond organ, piano, and a mini mode. Okay. Okay, we're going to do stuff from the new unreleased album. Show some emotion. Okay, play it. And this is where the ear training comes in handy.
Yeah.
Okay, first song, show some emotion. It's like a real jazzy kind of,
Yeah.
So we played it, one time through. Okay, cool. Okay, what's the next song? Passed the audition. They said, okay, we're going to rehearse here for 2 weeks, and then we're going to go to England, rehearse there, Shepperton Studio for 2 weeks, and then a 3-week tour of England, a 6-week tour of the United States. Great. So during that time, I sold sorry.
That's all right.
Sold the house in Fort Worth and moved to L.A. But at the rehearsal, the Who had a building there, and there was all these characters walking around in these like white. It was the stormtroopers from Star Wars. Star Wars had not come out yet.
Oh,
so I said, "Who
wow.
are these guys?" Oh, it's a new movie coming out. I was like, "Oh God!"
Wow.
Yeah. And so anyway, we did 3 weeks of England, and then flew to the States, and for the first, the opening act for 6 of the shows was Pat Metheny, and he had not come out with an album yet. I mean, he'd come out with Bright Size Life, and I can't remember the other one. But
That was an interesting time when you could be an artist,
Right.
and major labels would support you even though you had no hits. Like Joan Armatrading had that lover, ooh, down,
Yeah,
down.
right.
But like otherwise, I mean, I remember they showed her on MTV, but I think it was in the early days of MTV when they didn't have videos.
Well, her audience worldwide was huge.
Right.
Because we sold out Wembley 2 nights in a row.
Yeah.
And Elton John had done it once, I think. So that's 10,000 in London. The biggest show I did with her was 1978. Bob Dylan hadn't played in England since 1966, and he requested Joan to open for him. It was a thing they called the Picnic. Harvey Goldsmith was the promoter on it, and it was Clapton was Bob Dylan, Eric Clapton, Joan Armatrading, Graham Parker and the Rumor.
Wow. 2
other bands, and I can't remember what they called it. But what happened is they sold 150,000 tickets, and they broke the gate. So 250,000 people. And Bob wanted Joan right before him, so it was Clapton, Joan, and Dylan. Man, I'm looking out of the sea of heads, and my thought was, I got to play loud.
Yeah, I bet.
But it was, it was interesting working with her because we'd go, all over the world. It was, and the booking agent on that was Jerry Heller. Did you see NWA?
Yeah. Him.
He was Ruthless Records.
Right.
But he had this philosophy. What you do is you book the finest venue in town, opera house, symphony halls, whatever. So the first time you may only have a half an audience, but everybody likes the music. Next year the audience doubles. Next year the audience doubles from that, and we did that. Montreal Plaza des Arts. I think the first year we had like 1,000 people show up. Next year we sold out 2 shows and it's 2,500.
Right.
And then the 4th year we did 4 shows.
Something to be said about that time when a label would take the time and a booking company would take the time to develop an artist.
Right.
Like this isn't going to pay for 4 years, but when it pays,
they looked at the long game.
Yeah.
And what happened with Joan by the time 1979 rolled around, and what I did is I stayed with her 3 years. She liked to change bands every year, and she liked what I did. So, we did an album at Olympic. Glenn Johns produced it.
What was it like working with him?
To the Limit.
To the Limit?
Yeah, To the Limit and we did that at.
No, but what was it like working with Glenn Johns? Yeah.
Glenn was very British, very I don't know, upper whatever, but he had a lot of history, because he did Let It Be.
Yeah.
But okay, but because and the Who, the Eagles,
yeah.
the famous thing was like, we're a rock and roll band. I said, no, you're not. The Who is a rock and roll band.
Yeah, I saw that in that documentary.
And that's just Glenn. But what he did at that time, we recorded it at the Olympic, like say, and he called me up and said, listen, I'm going to go, Eric Clapton and I own a racehorse, so we're going to go up to Ascot or someplace up north. And he said, I'll pick you up and we'll go out for the day at the races. I said, cool. So he picked me up in a Rolls-Royce Corniche, white leather interior, and he said, yeah, I had to pay extra to get this because, there was like a 6-month backlog on it, so I had to pay extra to get it now. Okay. So we're riding up there and it's like, total character. But he knew what he. The other thing that he did, of course, his drum, method of miking the drums. He used that. Henry Spinetti was the drummer. 3 mics, one.
That's all you
here,
need.
One here, and then one on the kit in front. That's it.
Yeah.
But
what a great sound too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And the room. Olympic was a movie where they recorded orchestras for movies.
Right.
So the room, the Stones, the Beatles, everybody recorded in that room.
Yeah.
The drums just sounded great. But Glenn would not press record until all the sounds were right. And the way we worked with Joan, because we were learning, she had written all the songs. So we'd start the beginning of the day, working on the song. And then during the day, we just, add things. Let's try this. Let's try that. And you'd get like a perfect take, Hey, Glenn, can we hear that back? Oh, no, I'm still chasing sounds in here. So, there was a lot of perfect takes. That, But what he would do at the end of the day, we recorded each song twice, I think. Or once at the end of the day. And then we recorded twice at the beginning of the day. And then we'd start out another song. So it was just interesting, So we did that one, and then Joan, 1979, she wanted to do, A&M wanted her to re-sign her, but she hadn't gotten any royalties for any of the songs that she'd written. And this is the 5th album they wanted her to do. So she said, I'm not going to sign. So I said, okay, well, we're not going to give you tour support. She'd been, that's what happened at that time, tour support. So we were going to do a 6-week tour of Europe. Without tour support.
Right.
And I went to Jerry Heller's office and he said, we need an opening act. And he gave me 2 British names of George Duke. I said, let's get Duke. So George Duke opened with us, Sheila Escovedo, Ricky Lawson, Napoleon Murphy Brock. It's a huge band. So they opened for us for 6 weeks. But at the end of that, 4th week of the thing, she got a call from Jerry Moss. He said, okay, Joan, what do you want? Because you got the best-selling A&M record worldwide.
Really?
Yeah, so she re-signed. And the other artist that was touring over there, which I saw in a couple of places, Burdon was playing with Chris Christopherson and Rita Coolidge.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I ran into him at Hamburg, had some beers, Just so, and then we were going to do the drummer we had on it was Art Rodriguez, and he quit to join Ricky Lee Jones. We wanted to do, and what we wanted to do at the end of that European tour was record 2 nights at Wembley, and Glenn just couldn't get it together to do that live recording, because that band was killer.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I'll do it. You're doing it in Canada, so we lined up Canada But that's when Art Rodriguez quit, and the reason we wanted to do the album because he was a great drummer.
Yeah.
So we got Richie Hayward.
Oh,
Yeah.
Jesus.
So,
That's not bad.
Yeah, and so we did a live album with him. You know, Richie, man, he was character as well. You know?
Yeah.
So man, just this history, you know, just keeps going. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. So in the 80s, after the Joan Armatrading thing, what did you do?
Well, okay, after Armatrading, I quit Armatrading in the end of '79. She was going to go out on tour for like 6 months, and there was a 10-day break somewhere in there. So I don't want to go out on the road that long. So I quit. I got a call from Dolly Parton. Dolly Parton was a special guest on Cher's TV special.
Uh-huh.
There was one scene where Cher was in purgatory, Dolly Parton was the angel, Rod Stewart was the devil. so she and then she came out with.
I miss variety shows.
Oh
man,
it was an interesting show.
Go ahead, I'm
that
sorry.
Whole thing, the Tubes were on there as well.
Oh wow,
on that TV show, and she was going with Gene Simmons at the time.
Oh yeah.
So Gene and Rod Stewart show up in their Lamborghinis or whatever. So like, this is an interesting world here, man. I drive my van over, But anyway, I worked with Dolly. She called me up. She wanted to do that. She'd done 9 to 5.
Uh-huh.
So I did all the award shows with her. We played in Las Vegas 1 week a month for 6
Did
months.
you do the whole?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Started off with the piano.
Yeah. I played that in a band.
We did Here You Come Again.
Yeah.
Which Dean Parks had produced that one.
That's a great song, man.
Yes, it is. And it modulates 3 times.
Yeah.
Every
Oh
time
yeah, it does.
Man, it was like...
You can do that with a singer like Dolly.
Part of me starts boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom, shooting, in octaves, man, that's not easy. But it's all black notes.
Yeah. Did Dean write that song? Or
No, he produced it.
But he produced
the whole
it.
album.
Okay.
Newhouse's second gather.
That was a huge crossover. That was a huge pop hit.
Yeah. And Dean was a brilliant, arranger and still is.
Yeah. When I listen to Here You Come Again, I usually start it over again just because I'm just like,
It's
just good.
Yeah, it was. And she did Brother Love's Salvation show. I remember one night, Marvin Hamlish.
Yeah.
He comes backstage and he's got 2 blondes on either arm. Hey, listen, I really loved your piano playing. I said, oh, well, thank you.
Wow.
He just, okay, I guess I've made it now,
Yeah. I'm 52. I'm just old enough to know who Marvin, but when I was a kid,
Well, he
Marvin
did The
Hamlish
Sting.
was still in things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Sting and brought the Entertainer back.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he was still, I don't know, different character. But anyway, after Dolly, she did Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. I played on some of that.
On the record?
Yeah, on the record. And then she did another album. Then I did waiting for Dolly, because the thing I learned about artists is you have to go by their schedule. So Dolly was, 6 months of Vegas. Okay, cool. And then she took a break to do Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. What does the band do?
Right.
Just kind of hang around. And then she wanted to go on the tour in the spring.
There was no retainer situation,
and so
was there?
I got a call from Tanya Tucker.
Okay.
John Hobbs, who was playing with Tanya, he said, listen, I can't make this tour. So toured with her for 2.5 months. And she was going with Glenn Campbell at that time.
Oh, yeah.
So Glenn had show. And the thing was, back then, it's like you're always auditioning for stuff in L.A.
Right.
Because there's always some better opportunity or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
else you could
yeah.
do in between tours or whatever. And the other thing is you didn't tell anybody you were on tour. Because like 20 years later, hey, man, you still working with Dolly? That was 1981.
Yeah.
Oh. So I auditioned for Glenn Campbell. And they didn't take me because I had long hair. Glenn didn't like
Really?
long hair, yeah. Even though the whole band was like, hey, man, anyway, I knew all Glenn songs. And Glenn came to my room the night that they split up. He borrowed my cassette machine because he wanted to play a song that his band had written him. Next thing you hear is glass breaking and doors slamming, and you know, Mr. Campbell, you're going to have to go to the other wing or out of the hotel altogether. You know, it's like, hey.
Yikes.
And that's the night they broke up. I got my cassette machine back.
That's good. I was wondering what happened to it. If it went out the window or something with the TV or something.
But then just shortly after that, I joined Eric Burdon for a year. You know, buddies of mine from Houston, Terry Wilson and Tony Bronick. You know, they were.
How do you end up with guys from Houston?
Well,
Eric Burdon.
I mean, there was the Houston and Fort Worth and Dallas. You know, I mean, there was a guy that replaced me in the band in Fort Worth, a guy named John Bundrick, Rabbit, you know, who became the Who's keyboard player for 30 years.
Oh, Jesus.
You know,
man, he had a job.
I knew him. You know, and the thing about Texas people, you know, because like Fort Worth especially, is like we weren't accepted in Dallas.
Right,
because
right.
we were not as cosmopolitan, so we just stuck
Right.
together. You could go down to Houston, though, you know, and there's this. The music is what keeps us together, but we all keep in touch with each other.
Yeah.
You know, so one of the first guys that moved to L.A. was a guy named Willie Ornelas. He was a drummer. So you knew Willie. You call, hey, listen, man, I'm thinking about moving to L.A.
Yeah, yeah.
Dean
He'll
Parks,
hook you up.
I'm thinking about moving
Yeah,
to L.A.
yeah.
You know, and then people would call me, hey, listen, man, I'm thinking about moving to L.A. You know, so I got Warren Ham. You know, I was in a band with him in the 70s when Bruton was doing his thing with Little Whisper in the Rumor. So Warren moved out there. Now he's working with Ringo and Toto.
Now he is?
Yeah.
Jesus.
And,
What does he do?
Before that, he worked with Cher for 20 years.
Wow.
You know, he plays sax, flute, harmonica,
Oh, okay.
singer.
He's that
He's
guy.
brilliant. Yeah, and I saw him a couple of weeks ago here.
Let me ask you a question while we're on this.
Yeah.
Are there any gigs that you got offered that you passed on that you later went like, oh, shit, why didn't I do that? No?
No, none of that. One on my look back and I said, whew, I dodged the bullet on that one.
There was no like, oh, we want you to audition for this guy Rick Springfield, and you're like, no, thanks.
No, I mean, some of them were, I'd try them for a while.
Yeah.
And I'd say, you know, it's just not, it's not me.
So
Yeah,
at the turn of the 80s, then technology switched.
right.
And like people weren't even recording with pianos anymore. They were using those goofy DX7 / string
Well,
patches
no,
together.
DX7 didn't come in until like 83 and 84.
Right. But so in that time, all of a sudden, was there a time when what you were doing felt like they're like, hey man, you got to come, but we need you to bring a DX7, Roland Juno 106.
Okay. I bought one of the first DX7.
You did?
Yeah, I bought it in Japan. It was over there with Linda Ronstadt. And you couldn't get them in the States. There was a 6-month backlog on it. So I bought 2 from the factory. They delivered it to the hotel we were staying in, brought one back and sold it, and then I kept the other one. But before
Who'd
then,
you sell that one to?
Huh?
Who'd you sell it? You remember? Was it someone cool? Okay.
Friend.
Okay.
You know.
Are they going to be like, it's the guy that did that weird harmonica solo on the Tina Turner song?
Yeah, no. Well, Jack Bruno he's a friend of mine too.
Yeah.
But when you got it from the DX7 from the factory, they had not written any English manuals on the thing, and the new technology with algorithms and everything.
Yeah.
Nobody knew what an algorithm was. So me and Ronstadt's sound man, who was also from Fort Worth. You know, I mean, it's like
a Fort Worth mafia out there.
Well, we just keep in touch with each other.
Yeah.
You know, we learn and we introduce other people. You know, that's the way you should be. You find people that you really like and you keep in touch with them. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, there was a biographer that just wrote Dilbert's biography. And she said, listen, and you know, Dilbert has a cruise he does every year. 18 years I've been on it. She asked me one time, do you know anybody that has like some stories on Dilbert? And I said, yeah. I gave her like 20 names. She said, I don't know anybody that keeps in touch with each other for 50 years. I said, we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
Bruton, you know, it's like that sort of thing. But what happened? I still had Oberheim. By that time, I had actually, in 1982 is when I bought a Prophet 5. You know, the thing about the Prophet 5, it had auto-tune on it.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so you could hit it. And then, after Tanya, then I got on Eric Burdon's band. They had Skip Van Winkle was playing organ. I was playing acoustic piano and 2 synthesizers. There's some video on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, doing that stuff. But that band was really loud. You know, I mean, we toured for a whole year. And he put the original Animals back together, and I loved his music. You know, because Eric was like total creative guy.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, he sang in a big band, so he kind of considered himself a jazz singer.
Really?
Yeah, but he was always improvisational. And the other thing that I really liked, you know, when he put War together.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I love the stuff they did. You know, and he said,
Me too.
He said it was just like he said it was a 12-piece funk band that had girl singers and horn section. He said, I wanted to use the bass player, the drummer, the conga player, the guitar player, and the sax player. And then he put Lee Oscar on top of it. He said, okay, what I want you guys to do, just make up some kind of jam, funky jam, you know.
I'll just come in and
So
sing.
that was the first album, Eric Burdon Declares War, and it was Roll On Kirk, Spill the Wine.
Yeah.
You know, and he was just making up stuff. You know, and they worked that way for like a year and a half. So it was that, I was highly influenced by that too, because it was like, he's talking about Roland Kirk. He was a friend of Roland Kirk. You know, so like, okay. So when I joined him, I kept trying to get him to go in that direction, but he was doing something different every night. On the encore, when we toured Europe, we toured States, Canada. You know, there's going to be a bunch of stories in the book.
Okay.
That was a funny period. But after that band and all the synthesizers, his band was so loud, the guitar player had a super reverb right behind me, and I could hardly hear the speakers I had. So I went to an ear doctor, and he said, man, you can't play any more loud music. So what I did is I got together with two girl singers and myself on acoustic piano, played around L.A., and we were doing Lambert, Hendricks, and Ross, you know, swing kind of stuff.
Okay.
And then 83, so we were playing these different clubs. One club, Nucleus Nuance, Joni Mitchell had one of her collages behind the piano. She'd come in all the time. Herbie Hancock would
Oh,
the
wow.
piano. You know, it's kind of like this Hollywood cool,
Yeah.
vegetarian wine bar sort of thing. So Linda Ronstadt came in. She said, oh, you know, I just did this album with Nelson Riddle, and I wanted to take it on the road. And Nelson said, I'll put everybody to sleep because it's all ballads. So you're doing Mr. Sandman, and I did that with Dolly and Amy Lou. Can we come over to Peter Asher's office and just rehearse and see if we can do it? I said, yeah. So I wrote the vocal arrangements. It was Linda, three girl singers, and myself. And we came out. We did about 10 minutes in front of the orchestra.
Oh,
you know?
how killer, man.
Yeah, so that got me away from synthesizers.
Yeah.
And all the 80s stuff. You know, because I'm like,
Well, because as a keyboard player, that's like, it's like being a folk guy in 1967.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not happening anymore, dude. People are making feedback with electric guitars.
Right.
Go away. You know what I mean?
well, it was different because it got away from the music and it got into the gimmick.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
I remember one time I did a gig over at the Saxon Pub with Bruton and Brandon and Yogi, and there was all these people in town. I don't know what they were here for, but Bonnie Raitt was there, Mike McDonald was there. So Bruton says, "Hey, Red, you mind if Mike McDonald comes up and plays your keyboard?" I said, "No, not at all. Come on up, man." You know, and as he walked to the stage, he said, "Man, I got to apologize for that lick." Because there were some sessions that he couldn't make. Hey, listen, Mike can't make it. Can you do it?
Can you do that?
Yeah, sure.
That really, that's fun. It's so funny that you say that because that figure became so
Right.
ingrained in music for the
Right.
following couple of years. Like,
Robbie Dupree.
that was the thing you did on keyboards because that was that massive hit. Yeah.
Well, in L.A., you know, I mean, you only heard the hits out in the rest of the country.
Right,
and the rest of the
right.
world. The ones that were in L.A., you know, that was the thing about L.A. It was like you'd come up with an idea, and like less than a week later, there'd be 20 copies.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I was there during the time that Motley, you know, all the
Right.
Motley
Yeah.
Crue. I mean, there was like 25 bands that sounded just like them, you know, and all the clubs got inundated. Okay, that's over. What's next?
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
just, you know, so after a while, it just drives you crazy because you're always trying to invent something.
Yeah. Did you ever get to meet Nelson Riddle during that time?
Sure. No, I mean, Nelson, I was a big fan of his, you know, because all the Sinatra stuff.
Yeah.
There was an album he did with Oscar Peterson that used strings, No, he used cellos and French horns. And it was called, it was Oscar Peterson and Nelson Riddle. And I said, that's one of my favorite albums. He said, that was Oscar my favorite album too.
Yeah.
I said, whoa, cool. And when we did, so anyway, Linda wanted to take it on the road. Nelson went on the road with it. We took it on the road for like a year and a half.
Okay. I didn't realize that he went on the road with her.
He was getting $5,000 a night.
Shit, man. That's a cool gig.
Yeah. And at the same time, because by that time, there's another, Peter Asher, he was in charge of the Apple Records.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And at the 60s, Nelson Riddle was bashing the Beatles. Saying, man, this will never last.
Right,
these guys are just, this is not real music.
Right.
And meantime, Nelson's writing the music for Batman, TV show. Batman. So Nelson kind of faded out because it's like, he's a great arranger. He's Judy Garland, and he was doing the Carol Burnett show, and all that kind of stuff. But he had kind of faded out of the Hollywood scene, let's get Don Costa or Don Sebesky or some of those things.
Right. Or Henry Mancini or something like that.
So what happened, she had done a whole album with Jerry Wexler doing the thing. And there was only 2 songs she wanted to do. J.D. Souther and her, and they boyfriend and girlfriend for a long time. She said the last tune that they played, the last album they played every night was Only the Lonely, which was Nelson and Sinatra. Had one for My Baby and one for the Road. So I said, well, let's see if we can get Nelson to do these 2 songs. And so Peter Asher calls up Nelson and he said, well, we'd like you to do these 2 songs. He says, I won't do 2 songs. I'll do a whole album.
Yeah.
And then he says, great. Well, then I want to do this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that started the thing. And Nelson had to train Linda because she'd been singing with rock and roll. She always followed the drums and the beat.
Right.
And he said, no, you sing and the orchestra will accompany you. Oh, okay. So it was just like this whole, but, Linda was like, just brilliant. She wasn't afraid to try anything, so that was, that's why she did Pirates of Penzance and La Boheme and all the mariachi stuff.
Right, yeah.
A hit song in 7.
Yeah.
Get closer, But yeah, I'd hang around Nelson quite a bit. And Don Grolnick was the piano player. I was just a singer.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Linda, and I was the guy in the white dinner jacket.
Wow, that's awesome.
Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. So.
How have you taken care of your voice this whole time? Like, what have you done? Because you're not.
When I moved to Austin, I didn't sing for a long time. I didn't tell anybody I sang because after the Nelson Riddle, Linda Ronstadt tour, that was 84. I moved back to Fort Worth because I liked that music. It was. I wasn't singing over guitars or horns or that kind of stuff. So I actually, started working on my voice a lot. Yeah. And I put this band together, Red and the Red Hots, which I worked that for like 20 years out in L.A. But just doing it. And then because I was singing so much out there, when I moved here, I wanted to get back, or I actually wanted to play more jazz organ because I'd never really done that. And there was no place I could play out in L.A. a jazz organ because my name wasn't Jimmy Smith or Joey DeFrancesco.
Right.
So I was like, okay. And so I moved here and didn't tell anybody I sang.
When did you move here? In the early 2000s?
2002.
2002?
Yeah, officially. But I'd been coming here, for years.
What, was it Burdon and just kind of like the scene that brought you here?
Stephen had told me about this drummer and the musicians here.
Brandon.
Brandon
Yeah.
and Yogi. And Spirit Word album we did at Mark Goldenberg's house out in L.A. And so he had those guys come out. And I just, so this is what he's talking about. And Brandon's just, creative.
I've never seen a guy that plays the drums that's that kind of guy. Really, he's the most creative and lyrical.
So what happened? We done the album, and then it was about time for me to leave LA. Anyway. One of the last shows I did out there, the big shows, it was a band called Royal Crown Review.
Yeah.
And they were like the first one of these swing things. And actually, during the '90s, I played Red and the Red Hots, we played the Derby like every Thursday.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Classic.
But Royal Crown, I played on their last the Walk on Water. They were asked by the Hollywood Bowl Orchestra, Joan Armatrading, to do an old swing and new swing album at the Bowl for 2 nights. So they said, well, we want Red to write the arrangements. And they said, who's this guy? I want to see his charts. So flashback to when I put Red and the Red Hots together, 1985. The first show I did was alternating with the Neville Brothers at the Fort Worth Zoo. Right, I didn't even have a band. I had the girl singers.
Right,
I already trained them. We did some stuff. They liked us better than they liked the Neville Brothers. But after 3 years in Fort Worth, I started playing Caravan of Dreams.
Right,
and it got to.
I missed that place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
I played there twice a year, 4 nights in a row, 2 shows a night.
Yeah.
Sell out. But what they did, the Fort Worth Symphony had a Red Hot Gala. And I called them up and said, how come you didn't have Red and the Red Hots? Well, who are you? Well, I'll come over. So I come over and I talk to the symphony. Oh, wow, we didn't know you did all this stuff. And I said, yeah. So I said, I'd love to do a show with you sometime. So the next year, 1987, did a Popson Park. Doc Severinsen played Friday and Saturday night, and they asked me to do Sunday.
Oh, awesome.
So 45 minutes with my 2 girl singers, piano, bass, drums, and sax.
So you were playing swing music in that band.
We're doing all 1940 stuff.
So you were out there doing that stuff in L.A. before it started happening, and before the movie Swingers, before Royal Crown Review.
After I quit Eric Burdon, that was the stuff I was doing with, and Don Henley and all those guys would come into this little British restaurant that we were playing in. Actually, Sting came in, brought his dad one time, and his dad just loved it. Oh man, those are songs from my era.
Yeah.
So it's like, but I knew all those from the 78 records that I had done.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it was a big history of that. But anyway,
what a cool thing.
The symphony, I said, well, okay, we want you to do 45 minutes, or the orchestra's going to do 45 minutes. You're going to do 45 minutes. I said, well, can I do something with the orchestra? And they said, well, do you have any charts? I said, tell you what, I'll write something out if you'll pay for the copy work. I said, okay. So I did a medley of Someone to Watch Over Me and The Man I Love, and I wanted to do Minnie the Moocher.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Now, what I did with the Minnie and the Moocher chart, because I come from a classical background, there's one verse in there that says, she had a dream about this king from Sweden who gave all the things she was needing, like a house made of golden steel, diamond car with platinum wheels. Heidi. Yeah. What I did is I said, she had a dream about this young composer from Sweden. The underscore, the orchestra's playing, boo doo 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 shoo doo 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 doo. Gave her all the things she was needing. Boo doo 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 boom ba da ba ba boom ba da doom ba da dum ba da da ba da da. And the orchestra just said, oh man, that's cool.
Yeah.
So when I showed the score to Cher, he said, I like your writing.
Yeah.
So I wound up writing 30 minutes of music for Royal Crown. We sold out 2 nights at the Hollywood Bowl.
Awesome.
I played with Royal Crown. So I said, I can't top that. Okay, where am I going to go next? And that's when I started looking here.
Yeah. And so what, you just started playing with Brandon here?
Yeah. The first time I came down, I had my trio from L.A. Then I did South by Southwest the next year, and my drummer couldn't make it. So I got Brandon to come in. We played over to Anthony's, and he came and just nailed it.
Yeah, he's unbelievable.
No, nothing. It was some original stuff, organ, guitar, and drums. Cool. So then I started coming down here. And then I didn't have a keyboard down here, so I had a little MIDI controller, and I'd go over to Straight Music and get the little Oberheim and had the drawbar thing on it.
Yeah.
And it would shut off right in the middle of an organ solo to become a drum solo. But then, just eventually just sold a house in L.A. and moved, and then started playing with him.
But you still play with Eric Burdon?
No. I toured with Eric.
Not that long ago, right?
2006 to 2016.
Okay.
Yeah, he's over in Greece now. We talk regularly. But man, it was the last 10 years with him was fun.
Yeah.
Because when I worked with them in 1982, that one particular year, he had 3 different sets of managers, and every one of them screwed him.
Oh.
You know, and then he put the original Animals back together, and you know, he got screwed there too. But he got married. His wife is she was studying law. She became a law person. Then she just studied accounting. Then she's managing, and she's finances. I mean, she got, you know, I mean, when they got together, Eric had a rental house in near Palm Springs. He didn't have a bank account. He didn't have any money in the bank. They just pay him cash, and he'd go out and do shows. Everybody else, the band and the management was basically taking care of all the fees. But he was happy.
A lot of artists like that too. I don't want to know what I have. Just give me the money I need to live, and I'll be happy. Yeah. That's how you get fucked.
Mariana got involved in it, and she said first thing she did was, "Are we getting?" Oh,
No.
Okay.
I like to look at the Playboy lady from time to time.
So it's just like, you know, she wound up. Now they live in Greece, an island in Greece. But at one time they had 2 houses in Joshua Tree, and they had 2 houses in Ojai.
Oh.
Sold them cars and everything, you know. So I mean, she got him from having no money
to
back
on his feet.
Very successful.
Good.
Had his own, you know, records on his own label.
Be a sad thing to think that a guy like that was, you know, not being able to make ends meet.
Yeah.
Man, so how do you, like, what do you think of music for the last 10 years that's been coming out, that's mainstream? Do you listen to it? Does it cross your path?
Well, I mean, mostly, and this is what's happened all along to me, is that because I write my own music, I kind of stay in my own head, you know. I see social issues, you know, and when I started out, I didn't really think about lyrics or anything, you know. I was just, you know, thinking about the music part of it, and then I started listening to lyrics. I was like, oh, wow, they're really saying something, you know. And you watch Springsteen or, you know, some of these artists, you know, and you realize the power that artists have. So then I started getting into lyrics and writing music. I mean, music, a good song is a good song, a meaningful song. You know, you want to give something that people can walk away from, you know, some philosophy or something, you know, that makes the world a better place, you know. But the music that goes around it, that's what makes them listen, you know. So you can take any song that's written, you know, even the ones that are written today, if it's a good song, you know, and you can put whatever spin you want to on it.
Well, I just mean kind of like there's a thing, like a lot of times I'll get exposed to new music from watching Saturday Night Live, you know, the day after it airs or whatever. I'll watch a music person and there's not people playing instruments and communicating in real time and creating what we would view as magic.
Right.
There's, you know, dancing guy and a guy pushing colored buttons on a box, which I don't know what instrument that is.
That's not music. That's something created by somebody.
Right.
And even all the time that I was working with Eric, you know, over the last 10 years, is we'd have different people opening for us. And there would be a band, and they'd be watching us. And, you know, we got a guitar, a keyboard, drums, percussion, Eric, and they're watching us night after night and saying, you guys are just reacting to what each other's doing. Yeah, I said, that's music.
That's what it is, yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
So the guys said, well, you know, we grew up with, I play rhythm guitar and I play lead guitar and you know, and it's, no. I mean, you don't play one part and then you put all the parts together.
Right.
You're interacting, you know?
Yeah.
So what we managed to do with that particular band is we probably influenced a lot of the people that opened for us.
Yeah.
So, oh, well, you mean I can do a little thing and then that'll affect what the bass does?
Yeah.
Yes. You know. So I mean, I'm always constantly doing that. You know.
Right.
That's why, like, I started doing this Wednesday night thing. You know, with me and Brandon. First started with Ephraim.
Yeah.
Well, actually, when we started doing Black, Red, Black.
Right.
You know?
That's you, Brandon, and Ephraim.
Yeah, and that was interesting because I had total creativity. Brandon had the rhythm. You know, I was just the orchestra, and Ephraim did the melodies. We all fitted together, and we didn't step on each other. So there was nobody else playing chords and bass but me.
And you were improvising in the moment, creating.
Yeah, and and then when Ephraim would be on the road somewhere, it just became me and Brandon. We just, Brandon started into a groove and said, what are we playing? I don't know, make some shit up. Okay.
Well, it's amazing to see that. And I think it's like a thing that like I go out and see so many rehearsed showcasing acts. And I have been in rehearsed showcasing acts that when you go, you go and see, like I've seen Brandon quite a few times over the last year and a half or so. And it's the level of freedom involved and the height of communication that's happening without words being said to each other.
Right.
Is
Other people can do that.
It's otherworldly.
But they haven't had somebody to encourage them.
Right.
So that's why when I started doing the Wednesday nights again, Brandon can only do 2 of them. And so I get different drummers.
Is he doing the 28th?
He's there the 28th.
Okay. So next Wednesday, the 28th, he'll be playing drums.
Yeah, I've got this Wednesday. I got Tom Breckline, and Breckline.
Who's that?
Well, let me see. He started off playing with Chick Corea and then Wayne Shorter. And
what's he doing? How does he live here? It's such a weird town for jazz. I always feel like it's so marginalized.
It's interesting because it's a small jazz scene. But jazz scene is small in every city. You know.
I guess so.
It's like you have to have some place that's got venues. LA doesn't have any venues. New York, you can't get into any venues. You know, it's like the same people kind of clog up the wheel.
Have you been going to this long play thing? The long play lounge is having a jazz thing like on Tuesdays or something. Stagel,
Dozen Street or something. Yeah. I mean, there's different levels of it.
Yeah,
it's all creativity. Just guys getting together and say, "What are we going to play? Let's play this one." Okay. And everybody just improvises.
Do you get to do that shit with really young people, like people way younger than even me or anything?
Yeah, I mean, when I first moved here, they had the jam at Elephant Room.
Yeah.
You know, and a guitar player, just playing all the time. Excuse me, can you just stop for a minute? Listen to what I'm doing. Oh.
Yeah.
And then we play together, so it's like a mentoring sort of thing.
Yeah.
And you can't get that. You go to LA, everybody's, that's like going to graduate school.
Yeah.
You've already learned what you're supposed to learn. You need someplace where you can experiment.
Right.
And so you have to have plenty of venues, which the city supports that here, or you find someplace, or you find, who is it? Travis Sutherland?
Yeah.
Okay, now he's got this Zoe Market
down
there in Burdon.
Yeah.
I played down there a couple of times. Me and a guy that just moved here from L.A. that played with Clayton Hamilton Orchestra, played with Oingo Boingo, played with Monkestra,
Wow.
But, I mean, I'd known this guy. He worked with me for like 20 years in L.A., and he just moved down here. So now I'm getting him into the thing. So bringing that energy that he couldn't do in L.A., because, how many people can you draw, This is just like, let's just show up and play and see what happens.
Yeah.
And the better you play, the more people tip.
Yeah.
It's not about the money. It's about what you create. The creation actually draws the money in. So
that's the thing that I work with the Austin Music Foundation and talking to young musicians. I remember being a young musician, like you just want to get to point B.
Right.
Like you don't realize that all the fun is in between point A and point B. Because point B, once you get there, you just got to get to point C. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's all you realize at point B.
Well, you got to get to point money.
Yeah.
You still got. It's like, okay. Where I made most of my money was touring with different people.
Right.
And in between the tours, maybe I'd meet somebody. But I try to get a gig because I always wanted to have something that, if I could make money playing music that I create myself.
Yeah.
Because you're working with an artist, you're totally dependent on what their schedule is.
Right.
I learned that from Armatrading. Fortunately, she toured a lot. Sonny and Cher toured, until they broke up. Dolly, when she wasn't doing movies, Ronstadt decided to do something else. Eric Burdon, fortunately, he was a very consistent touring guy, but he got old.
Yeah.
You know, he said it's time for him to do something else. So you're always dependent on somebody else's schedule. And when I started Red and the Red Hots, that was my own baby. You know, so I worked that for 20 years, and it got very successful. But it was also this band that I had to put together and had to maintain all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, you know, I mean, I wound up not having to do sessions or not having to do whatever other stuff that I needed to do.
And you still play under Brother Red, if needed, or no?
Well, this is the first one.
It's the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested. And there again, it's like, you know, I'm a very creative person, you know, and I get bored doing the same stuff. And I think about music that's not being played.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing with this thing. It's like, you know, thinking about, because the band I played with in the 70s, they was Bill and Warren Hams, the Ham brothers. Daryl Norris on drums, and it was one of the most creative bands. It started me off on the creation.
Mm-hmm.
We did everything from Wes Montgomery to Brian Auger to Little Feat to Chick Corea to who knows what, you know, Jimi Hendrix, you know.
Wow.
So I'm thinking about all that stuff because we kind of split up because I went to L.A., Warren went to L.A., and drummer died. So it's like, okay. But those elements are still there. So what I'm doing is going back to some of that material, you know.
Right.
Maybe do some Little Feat, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But you play a fair amount. How was the last year and a half of the not playing at all?
Well, I was always playing. You know, the first thing that I did, because
you were doing live streams and stuff.
Well, after Eric Burdon, I mean, that was touring all the time. And I do like to tour. And I've got friends and fans all over the world. But I knew that staying all the time in Austin is not it. So I was looking for festivals I play. Mm-hmm. So I played Big Blues Bender in September in Las Vegas. Me and Brandon did a festival down in Australia just after that. Ottawa Blues Festival, I did that in July. Delbert's Cruise in January. So I'd have them like staggered about every 2 months. So, and I'd always put different bands together to do that. But because the audience is scattered around the world, and what I was going to do at Ottawa Blues Festival this year, or last year before it got canceled, I wanted to do just some of my solo tunes and write it for string quartet.
Oh, wow.
You know, piano.
Yeah.
And there was this theater on the Ottawa Blues Festival, and I said, this is what I'd like to do. Oh, okay, great. Yeah, we'll book you a show on that. Great. I can start writing for it. Okay, how am I going to promote it? Well, I need to do some videos, you know. Well, I was trying to find somebody that could edit videos for me, and people kept sending me to YouTube. Here, you can learn from this. Like,
Right. Yeah.
you know? So that's what I did. It took 6 weeks to learn video editing. You know?
Yeah.
So I'm like self-contained on that. So that's why I stayed busy with that. And then I did 7 shows, 2 of them with Brandon, 1 with Mike Malone, 1 with Andre, 1 with Sylvie, my wife, and then 2 of them solo. And the last show that I did, it took me 6 days to do it, edit it, and then donations, I got $45. Okay, this isn't working well. And at that same time, that's when Colin Shook started doing the Monk Jazz thing.
Right.
You know, and that is, you know, that way you can reach an entire world.
Yeah.
Because I've got people in, you know, Switzerland and Norway and
Right.
Australia and Japan and all over the place, you know. So, you know, that's kind of like the future, and it also kept me engaged in what's going on.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So there's always creativity in music. You have to find it.
Yeah.
You know. And that's the other thing that I learned. Like working with Armatrading, it's like, okay, she didn't have a huge fan base in the United States, but she did worldwide.
Right.
So you go there. Eric, I mean, we toured with him all over Germany, you know, at least once a year.
Well, that's those. I mean, a lot of those European people and British people, like they realize there's a world, and America is a big part of that here. But us, it's just here.
Yeah.
Like you don't realize.
Yeah.
But
I mean, there's an audience for everything.
Yeah.
You know, you just have to find out what it is.
Yeah.
And you have to create it before they know what it is.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what I'm working on now.
So how far are you on this book, man? That's what I'm excited for the book.
Well,
Whoever's listening to this is like, yeah, when is this book coming
well,
out?
after I finished writing the Brother Red stuff for this Saturday,
Okay.
I'm still not finished with that. And then I've got, I just write bits and pieces, or like, I mean, there may be stuff on here, I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I'll get into the detail, because the thing about it, the thing I've known or found out about my life is, okay, just an example. There's one guy that I work with, a guy named Mike Post. I don't know
Oh,
if
yeah,
you know.
yeah. Jesus.
TV writer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, when I work with Dolly
Dun,
Parton,
dun.
I mean, he had Rockford Files, and now he's
Yeah,
doing,
yeah.
LA.
A Law and Order.
Yeah, Law
Dun,
and Order.
dun.
Ding, ding. Yeah, right. Well, Mike, what he used to do, I mean, he'd conduct an orchestra. He's got mirrored sunglasses on.
Yeah.
But what he did, he was a guitar player, and with Dolly Parton, when she did this Las Vegas thing, she was scared about that because she'd been doing country fairs, and she wanted to have this huge castle and be a big orchestra sort of thing. So Mike actually produced the show for her, and we rehearsed for 3 weeks. After the 3 weeks, the first show we did was in Lake Tahoe.
Yeah.
And I sat down, and at the time he says, "Listen, man, if you want to do, Rockford Files or some of those things, why don't you come over to the Universal?" And, he was doing 5 shows a week. Mike Melvoin's playing piano, and
Like the Mike Melvoin.
Huh?
Like the Mike Melvoin.
Yeah. So he's playing piano, and I go over and look at the piano, and it looks like Chopin etudes. It's all, no chord changes, are written notes. I said, "How do you get ready for something like this?" He said, "Well, I usually sight read an hour's worth of Bach 2 and 3 part inventions, just so I get my reading into flow with this. Because he's got to sit on one pass. There's no mistakes, and you got an orchestra that's dependent on you. There's pressure on that.
Wow.
That's a skill. So, anyway, I didn't ever do that. I did work with Joe Conley, did Simon, some of those things, But what, sitting I sat next to Mike on the plane riding up to Lake Tahoe, and I said, "So how'd you get started in doing this stuff?" I like to interview people as well.
Yeah.
So he said, I was a session guitar player, and, I said, making a good living doing that, But he said, a friend of mine called me up and said, "Andy Williams is looking for a conductor." He said, "Okay, I'll take it." And he said, my first call was to a friend of mine and said, "Can you teach me how to conduct?" He said, the hardest thing was to get the job. The easiest is to find somebody that could do it for you.
Yeah.
Or teach you how to do it.
Right.
So I use that philosophy, when Linda Ronstadt, I want to do 5-part vocal in front of Nelson Riddle's orchestra. And I said, "Okay, I can do that."
Yeah.
Bring out the book. Okay, let's see.
How do I do
I've
this?
been doing 3-part, but, it just took a little work. And then
Yeah.
you learn. Or video editing. Okay, nobody's going to teach me. I'll just do it myself.
Yeah.
So you learn these skills. You don't say, "It's too hard."
As long as you can rise to the occasion, it is good to
You can
fake it
figure
till you
out how
make
to
it
do it.
and bite off more than you can chew.
Right.
You'll go further in life. But you can't just bullshit.
No.
Yeah.
No, but you have to work at it.
Yeah.
And you have to know what your limitations are. Or the guys that are classically trained pianists, and they say, "Well, how do you improvise?" "Give me that music." Play.
Yeah.
They freeze up.
Yeah.
But it's like, the more you do it, the better you get. It's like riding how'd you learn to ride a bicycle?
Yeah. I have no
Fell
idea.
off it a few times.
Yeah, exactly. How long you been married, man?
13 years.
Awesome.
Maybe 14.
Yeah.
She's from Switzerland.
Okay.
Met her at a show in Munich. We traded CDs. 5 months later, I came back. She came to Bonn, came to a show up there, and then we just kind of hit it off and started, produced 3 albums for her.
Okay, so she's an artist as well.
Yeah.
Excellent.
She's good, but because she's European, she says, "I just, I don't want to sing French songs.
Right.
Nobody understands them. Just sing them."
Yeah.
And just the way she sings them. She wants to sing rock and roll. Well, that's everybody wants to sing rock and roll.
Yeah.
But once you sing, she's got a good jazz vocabulary. She was one of the first times we went to dinner in Munich. You know, we at a restaurant, you know, and they're playing this background music, you know. We're having a good conversation. She says, "Oh, listen, I've got to listen to this. You know, this is my favorite Miles Davis song. You know, that's Paul Chambers on bass." I said, "You know who Paul Chambers is? Doesn't everybody?"
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going for this.
Yeah, no, totally. I
know?
understand that. That's a keeper.
Right. So,
That's a keeper. Well, dude, man, this has been incredible
right.
talking
Well,
to
we
you.
managed to cover a lot.
Yeah, we did, didn't we? Yeah. And people could see you Saturday, July 24th at Sea Boys.
Yeah.
Wednesday, July 28th at Continental Club. Brad Young and Friends with Brandon Temple.
Yeah.
What time is that show?
That's 10:30. I do that every Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
You know, actually with.
So John D moved down an hour.
Oh yeah. Well, John D's downstairs. I'm upstairs.
Oh, you're upstairs at the
Upstairs
gallery.
at the gallery,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. Oh yeah, gallery. Sorry, I have that written
Yeah.
down. But you're also doing. You're going back home to Fort Worth to the Scat Lounge.
Yeah.
on July
I play
30th.
that once a month. Been doing that for 9 years, something like that.
And people can find you on at redyoung.com.
Redyoung.com. Yeah.
This has been incredibly educating and just so fun talking to you, man.
Oh, you too, Johnny.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
And listening to your music, man, people should just get out there because you can just throw that shit on Spotify and listen to it, and it's gorgeous.
Well, it's just, you know, I've got so many influences that I
Yeah.
have to get out.
Yeah.
You know, I've got some original stuff. I mean, one reason I wanted to move down here is to do my original stuff, and I still haven't done it. You know, I can get sidetracked.
Yeah.
Like the Hot Horns, that's fun. You know, we didn't even touch on that. I did that every Thursday, happy hour at Antone's, 8-piece band.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 5 horns, 2 trumpets, alto, tenor, baritone. And what it was, and Brandon was on drums, Nick Clark on bass. And what I did is said, you know, before when Antone's reopened over on 5th, I said, you know, before the electric guitars took over the blues, I said it was Ray Charles and Jimmy Witherspoon, Percy Mayfield, small horn sections.
Right.
You know, and they said, "Oh, you want to do that every Thursday?" Yeah. So
Yeah.
I did that, and I got the library together. I got probably 200 arrangements in there. You know,
That's amazing.
yeah, and it's good. Like with the horn section, we actually played. We opened for Rebirth Brass Band over at Empire Control Room. One time there was like 1,000 people there. You know, people say, "Man, those horns are more powerful than electric guitar."
Yeah. Yeah.
Compared to what? Do that with the horns, you know, just do all sorts of stuff, you know. But that's another thing, and that's one reason I stopped doing the Red and the Red Hots, was because every time I wanted to do a new song, I had to write out
Yeah.
horns for it, and I think the first couple of weeks I started doing the horns. I got creative on writing new arrangements. I wrote about 15 of them, and I couldn't remember what the endings were. So I'm looking over, you know Mingo Fish Trap, right?
Yeah.
So Dan Bechtel's playing Barry sax.
Yeah.
Kaz, Danny Robinson on alto, Steve Butts is on trumpet, and now I've got Brian Swartz, my buddy, on trumpet from L.A. And I was, how many chords on the end? 4. Okay, 1, or I'd screw up. You know, I'd screw up on a new chart and say, "Listen, folks, I messed up the ending. You mind if we do that again?" "No, that's fine." Okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's just, you know, just ideas, you know. I mean, I always try to think of how to include this into that or this into that. You know?
Yeah.
That's the way music should be, you know.
Totally.
I'd love to get involved with Austin Music Foundation, too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, we could use someone like you around.
You know, I'd love to do it, pass on. And all that. One reason I moved down here is because all of the stuff that I had learned on Hammond organ, the guys are all dead that I worked with. So I wanted to pass what I'd learned on to people here. You know, so and that's where all the organs came from. That's why I'm doing Wednesday nights. Every Wednesday night, you know. And people say, "Do you teach?" I said, "Well, I don't teach, but come down and watch what I'm doing and ask questions."
Okay, I will. Got any tips on the double-tiered Casio over here?
Huh?
Got any tips on the double-tiered Casio?
Oh, man, that's cool. No, it's got to weigh 300 pounds.
Yeah. Well, man, it's been great talking to you.
Thank you, Johnny.
Yeah. Oh, that's Red Young. What an amazing artist. Get out there and check out his music. The Organizer, duets, ballads, and blues, all available wherever it is you stream and download your music. Brother Red Music is out there too. Go to redyoung.com for all of your Red Young needs. And if you live in Austin, go see him tomorrow night, Saturday, July 24th at Seaboys. Go see him on Wednesday, July 28th at Continental Club Gallery with the great Brandon Temple. Or July 30th at Scat Lounge in his hometown of Fort Worth. What a great conversation. I want to thank Red for insisting that we do this in person, because that really worked out really well. You know, great time talking to him. What a fabulous dude. You got to finish that book, dude. You got to write that book. You got to finish it. You got to put it out, because I want to read it. Go to redyoung.com for all of your Red Young needs. And gang, don't forget, when you're out there checking out redyoung.com, you can subscribe to this podcast wherever it is that you find podcasts, be it Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Overcast, Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere. New shows all the time. We actually just dropped a From the Vault episode with the great Joe King Carrasco. Go check that one out. It's the episode right before this one. Red Young. Guys, have a great weekend, whatever it is you're doing. And be safe. Be safe out there. Wear your masks. If you're not vaccinated, get vaccinated. And have a great weekend. Let's get down.